especially because of social media, that girl who was an 8 was going to marry the guy who was an 8. So he's like the personal injury attorney was going to marry like the prettiest girl at Hooters, whatever.
No, it's perfect.
But now she's being sucked out and she's going to the Maxim party in Los Angeles. So that guy who was going to marry the 8 is now got to settle for a 7, a 6, a 5, a 4. Men normally distribute throughout the country, meaning there's a cardiologist in Coeur d'Alene who makes $300,000 a year. Every city has high status males, but really attractive women do not normally distribute. Really attractive women heavily distribute in places where they can get more for their physical attractiveness.
It's a sticky topic, man. How do you attract a high value woman if you're a 21-year-old and you're trying to become someone at that young age?
So the issue is there's the evolutionary features that all humans have, in general, almost all humans have, which is basically sort of the concepts like men are more interested in facial symmetry, hip to waist ratio, signs of youth, physical attractiveness in a woman. Women are more interested in a man's status, his ability to procure resources, his access to scarce resources, his social proof, things like that. And in general, we see those things, and those things will be the same way 1,000 years from now. They're not going to be weeded out. There's no selection pressure against them. So we're going to see humans act this way for a long time. Then there's the culture, and culture evolves much quicker than humans do. And one of the biggest cultural adaptations we've had is the internet, and more specifically dating apps and social media apps. And because of that, what's happened is there's a certain group of men that are able to display status at incredible scale. One of my good friends is Dan Bilzerian. He's probably the proto example of that.
For sure.
So in his case, he's able to display status. And does his status work for every woman every time? Of course not. No. But it works for so many women so frequently that from his perspective, he's got 40 women a day coming to try to go out with him. When you see that kind of situation, then you understand, well, if you can do this. Like, for instance, consider a movie star back in the 1980s. Consider a Tom Cruise or whoever. His ability to just like reach out and pluck attractive women, a George Clooney.
Sure.
It wasn't that great. But now they just slide in your DMs. Girls get that DM from Champagne Poppy, Drake's IG, and the next thing you know, they're on a private jet. And like, they had no intention of cheating on their boyfriend, but of course they just Drake, you know, it happens. And like, the thing is, it seems so unreasonable until, you know, you talk to enough women who've been flown out to Dubai or been at least approached about having dinner with a guy for $5,000. I'm not saying all women are susceptible to this, but what I'm saying is enough women are susceptible to it that what's happened is the entire market has shifted to where the men with the highest status are getting the most attention.
It's true.
And men who fall short of that high status level are getting little attention. For those of you who question whether or not this is true, you should look at the statistics from dating apps. The top 10% of men on dating apps get 63% of the right swipes. The top 20% of men get 83% of the right swipes. The top 40% of men on dating apps get 96% of the right swipes, which means the bottom 60% of men are competing for 4% of women.
Interesting.
Okay?
Wow.
And by the way, you know, when you pay, I don't know if you've seen like, I think Tinder stock just like crumbled in the last couple of months. If you know, when you pay extra for the boosts on those Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge apps, you know what happens? It's 93% men and 7% women do that. So you actually like put yourself in an even worse situation in some cases. So it's one of these things where when women were surveyed, women found 80% of men they encountered to be below average attractiveness. Well, of course, mathematically that doesn't work, or it does, but it's very difficult to do. Women basically see, because of social media, and we're talking mainly in short-term dating context, women see 5s as 0s, 6s as 0s, 7s as 0s, 8s as 5s, 9s as 7s, and then there's only like 3 10s, like Drake, Chris Hemsworth, and Aquaman. Like, that's it. Everyone else is like a 9.5. So men are, the scale is skewed so far to the left, and you should expect this from an evolutionary standpoint because women are going to be more picky than men. There's this thing in evolutionary psychology called the parental investment hypothesis, which of the two genders in a species, the one that has more parental investment is going to be the more selective of the two. You see it with certain fish, male fish and male seahorses, but mostly with mammals, you see the females, the ones that gestate the pregnancy. They're the ones who have to the males compete. So you should expect more pickiness from women. Also, 70% of divorces are initiated by women because of this pickiness. But when you come to these realizations, then it's like, okay, you're asking, what does a man have to do to get a high status woman? And the answer is more. He needs to actually show more. And a lot of times it's like, I had my buddy FitX Fearless on, and he was talking about, he like brushes his lips. Like, bro, he gets the ball fade every week, and he like does beard care. And he said some of the people will get on his comments and be like, bro, you're trying too much. And I'm like, he's trying too much, but he's also your girl. So like, is he really trying too much?
Yeah.
It's like the guy who like wants to improve his sales team every week. He has meetings with his sales team and he's like, guys, we need to really get to the pain point. We need to keep these guys on target. And you sit there and you go through, you go and review sales calls and you're like, this is what you could have done better. And you have a sales trainer who helps him. Is that guy doing too much or is he actually trying to build his business? And so the reality is right now with social media, I encourage my guys to get as many high quality photos of them in high status situations. Could be with girls, might not be with girls, could be with a nice car, might not be with a nice car, but just hiking, doing cool stuff. Do as much as that as you can, because now your status is not only easily seen by a lot of people because they're the ones checking you out. It seems from your standpoint to have low perceived effort. Those are Bilzerian's words in his book, The Setup. Low perceived effort and infinitely scalable. And so because of that, when women are selecting the haves and the have-nots, you get selected as one of the haves, and it's a huge advantage. It has never been, once you cross that line of being one of the haves, as far as dating is concerned, you have so much of an advantage compared to somebody in like 1985. Because there wasn't like a middle level. I think you and I would be considered like local celebrities or a mid-tier level, lower middle class of fame, right? This level of fame didn't exist in 1985. Right. You were Tom Cruise or you were janitor.
That's it.
There was no middle class of fame.
Sure.
Now there's a middle class of fame because of social media. You can have a guy who lives in a city and has 200,000 followers, and like he's got the biggest podcast in Idaho, or he's got the biggest podcast in Wichita, he's got the biggest podcast in Waco. Whenever he goes out, everyone knows him there. Every hot girl in the city's seen his face. Sure. So it's local celebrity that you're able to produce that didn't exist before. And right now, I think in this time period, you kind of need that because when you were growing up, it's Coeur d'Alene. Is that how you say the city?
Coeur d'Alene, yeah.
In that instance, what happens is a lot of girls, when they turn 18 in a smaller city in Idaho, what are they going to do? They're going to leave. They're going to go to Los Angeles. They're going to go to the really pretty ones are going to go to Chicago, Los Angeles, New York. They're going to go to Vegas. They're going to go to these different places because they know they can have more opportunity to get more for their physical attractiveness. So what's happened is, especially because of social media, that girl who was an 8 was going to marry the guy who was an 8. So he's like the personal injury attorney was going to marry like the prettiest girl at Hooters, whatever. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
No, it's perfect.
But now she's being sucked out and she's going to the Maxim party in Los Angeles. So that guy who was going to marry the 8 is now got to settle for a 7, a 6, a 5, a 4. Men normally distribute throughout the country, meaning there's a cardiologist in Coeur d'Alene who makes $300,000 a year. And there's a cardiologist in Waco who does it too. Every city's got a cardiologist. Every city's got a prime, defense attorney. Every city has high status males, but really attractive women do not normally distribute. Really attractive women heavily distribute in places where they can get more for their physical attractiveness. Brickell, South Beach, in Soho, West Hollywood, places like that, the Las Vegas Strip.
This is a solid science. I got my producer over here. I told you it's gonna be interesting, huh? Because I love all this. But it's not a lot of people talk like this. And at the core of it, there's a lot of truth. I'm following every thread of what you're saying. And even if it triggers some people that don't understand, like they're not really being honest about how all this works, this is exactly how it actually works. This is what status actually is. It's a lot,
I think it's hard for people to grasp the difference between descriptive and normative. So it's something when I say that's descriptive is like, for instance, male jealousy leading to murder. That's something that's very common in Dr. David Buss studies it. It's where he has a book called The Murderer Next Door, which is really great. And I believe, is it Marty Hazelton? I forgot. There were 2 other evolutionary psychologists who wrote a book called Murder also. And so that's kind of one of the things. It's like, because evolutionary psychologists study murder, does that mean they condone murder? The answer is no. Sure. Just like an oncologist does not condone cancer because he studies cancer. Right. When one of these situations, one of the things that we found through these studies is that humans are basically hairless murder apes who are incredibly shallow. No matter how much that makes you feel uncomfortable because of the Disney movies you watch or what you learned at church or what your mom and dad told you, the reality of the situation is you are here because of 200,000 years of Homo sapien evolution. You're here because of 178 million years of mammalian evolution. That's why you're here. And so because of that, that's why men compete with other men for access to scarce resources and access to women. Sure. And that's it. If women weren't picky, we'd all still be living in caves. Right. And that's an ugly truth that people don't want to hear.
Yeah, I think just listen to you. If you really understand this, it actually is such an advantage to know how it all works, be really aware of it. That's why someone should come near you.
Huge advantage.
This is a huge, just understanding the biology, the history, and really the formula. To me, this is a set of rules. And if you know the rules to play, you can advance to the next level. So many people are trying to win in life, but they're not playing by the same set of rules that me and you are playing by. Hard to break through the algorithm if you're never gonna try to understand these rules. So first you got to understand them, and then you got to figure out how to create demand in your life. Bottom line, end of story. But it's funny. So I work with a lot of women too. Probably more women I work with, which is weird. It just is what it is. I work with probably more women than I do with men in the coaching space. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and this is me stepping out trying to find big stages in life. I'm kind of following in my mentor Ed Milet's footsteps right now. So I'm doing all the things, and I'm getting all the scar tissue. I'm learning all the lessons. I'm giving value to the world. I'm stepping in the light. But what I find as I do this work, especially with women, so many women are coming and say, how do I find a you? I hear it all the time. Eric, can you help me find a guy? It's like a panic in women, especially women that have maybe been divorced. They're at 40 years old. They feel like the clock is ticking. It is a pressure cooker. And now I'm trying to teach people to have standards, like all the things, but it's like, well, this is tricky. There's actually not a lot of high value people that exist in the world. You're right. It's a tiny class of people that actually have real demand.